Welcome back to Passion About Music Education, a channel dedicated to music educators like you. My name is Rachel Hardman, and today we're going to talk about self-evaluation within the classroom. There's lots of talk about assessment and how we do that and how we do assessment that is beneficial for our students. A majority of our teaching time we're doing assessment that does go on a student's records but doesn't really necessarily help them understand how to improve. How do we bring meaningful assessment evaluation into our classroom? Well, I'm sure like myself, you've experimented with many different ways, from doing paper self-evaluation, grading themselves 1 to 5, but I still always come back to my favourite method, which of course is actually recording the students. Back in the day when I first started teaching, that would have been done on an old-fashioned tape cassette, and then we went to the mini disc player. Now you can obviously use that on a tablet or on your phone. And of course, over the last few years, everybody's been teaching much more online, so they've had to use different methods of assessing students. So asking students to record themselves has become quite a norm. But why is it important that you use this as an opportunity for self-evaluation? A lot of our students are very confident until you press the record button. And if we're really truthful, that's still the same for us. When I press this record button to video this, I sometimes have to do 3 or 4 takes to get the information out to you correctly. There's something quite terrifying about that record button going on because of the pressure we put on ourselves, that whole fight and flight, trying to protect ourselves from what could be a dangerous situation. Now, of course, we know the camera or the recording equipment isn't dangerous and we can redo it, but the pressure we put on ourselves is quite remarkable. And if we don't encourage our students to practice this in the safety of our music classrooms, then they'll find that when they have to do this further and further down the line, they become more and more self-aware. And this is particularly important for our secondary students, our 14-year-olds up to 18, where they're much more aware of what their peers think of them, and they actually really care what their peers think of them, to the point that they'd rather not do an assignment, rather not do a performance, rather fight you on it than potentially embarrass themselves in front of their friends. You know this, you often find if you ask students to perform in assemblies, they would hate to do it, but if they were performing in a concert and their friends could come and watch it, they're more likely to do it. I had a group of students who were in year 9, and through no fault of their own, they didn't have a music teacher in year 7 because of the way the curriculum was structured. They didn't get to do music in year 8. So their first experience at 14 years of age of recording and composing was in my music classroom. So they'd been working on creating their own motifs using keyboards, working in pairs, and they had been practicing them and they're sharing, and they'd got their friends to come and have a listen to their work, and there'd been a lot of sort of collaboration going on in the classroom. And the task was always to perform the pieces live, the 3 leitmotifs live, and then record themselves. Now, although I talked about the process during the lessons and we'd had a number of lessons on the topic, I'd given them really good guidance about make sure you write your notes down, make sure you have all the keyboard settings and voices written down so you can go from piece 1 to piece 2, piece 3. A lot of the students didn't take that quite so seriously because they're like, yeah, Mrs. Hardman, that's not a problem, we can do that. They'd shared their ideas with their friends, and I'd listened to a lot of their work during the rehearsal process. But that recording process, that final performance, is a very different experience. And what happened for a lot of the students is they did one of 2 things. One, they had uncontrollable giggles, which was hilarious, particularly quite a lot of the girls. There were some boys, because the pressure of having the video camera right on them and recording it while everybody else is in the classroom watching it, suddenly got them being very nervous, so they started giggling. Other students went absolutely very quiet and were very focused and played the pieces and did, got through it. That moment, that experience for them was such a valuable lesson because they now understand what it's like to perform and present under pressure, what went well and what they need to develop. We had many a conversation afterwards about how it felt, and a lot of the girls had talked about why they were giggling. And for many of the students, they said that they didn't realise how nervous they were going to get and how much pressure that they felt when that video camera went on. So this was one area where it was a really good life lesson for them to learn about nerves, how the brain works, how we have to learn to control that, how preparation is super important, having good notes, making sure you've practiced everything so that you're ready to deliver it. It's such a valuable tool that music teachers, regardless of whatever career or life path our students go on to, they will need that skill of performing under pressure regardless. So when we went on to the next topic, they were less nervous, more prepared, understood the task. If you're going into a brand new school, be aware that your older students may not have had those experiences of performing and being recorded and self-evaluated in the way you would expect them to. The other point of self-evaluation is, of course, to play the recordings. It's no good just putting a video camera on or, the microphone, record the work never to be seen or heard again. Students need to watch it. They need to go back and see themselves perform. They need to go and listen to what it sounds like, because there's a big difference for our students when they're engrossed in playing in their ensemble and playing their part and really focusing on not making a mistake, particularly for our, non-musicians in our general music classrooms, but to actually be able to step aside from that and to hear how it sounded together when is such a valuable teaching moment. They sit and they have so much insight into what they do well, and they will always tell you what they did wrong. I think it's important to share it with the class. I think it's really important that they watch and appreciate each other, that you get students to clap at the end of it. And then I tend to ask the students what 2 or 3 things went really well. Always start with the positive. What did they achieve of the task? What did they achieve together as a group? What were the musical ideas that came out that were different and unique, interesting, musical? And then I'll ask students to give 1 area for development. And I always make sure my students understand that this is not an opportunity to be critical, to be bullying. It is a chance to give somebody, if you had half an hour longer, what would you go away and improve? So that's what I'll either get the group themselves to say this out loud and have that discussion as a class, or I will get other students from different groups to feedback, so that you're always getting that feedback and self-evaluation, but you're trying to make sure that it always stays focused on the music task and the criteria. What was the criteria? Have they met it? How did they meet it? What didn't they meet, and how could they improve it if we gave them another half an hour to work on this task? Sometimes I'll follow that up with a self-evaluation sheet, asking them to reflect on the topic or the unit, because I tend to record nearer the end of the project. Get them to, if it's like film music, what did they understand, what leitmotif? Were they able to work together in groups? Were they able to create their own ideas? Were they able to use the sounds? Were they able to perform? And to set themselves a musical goal for the next term. So it's, how are they going to improve? What do they want to improve on? Do they need to improve on composing skills or performance skills or their keyboard skills, or use more variety of sound, or use more pitch, or even actually change to a different instrument? Whatever it is, they will think about their own personal development. And those skills of self-evaluation in that way are much more meaningful than just doing a tick box for the sake of a tick box. Never underestimate the value of recording, because although we know our students are very tech savvy, they're recording themselves all the time outside of school, doing all sorts of fun stuff like their TikTok dances. Actually doing performance work under pressure is really important. This also can be applied not just for your general music groups, but it also can be a great way after a school concert to showcase what they did so the students can watch their performance. Often I'll put these recordings in an area on the server just for those students to access, so that they have the opportunity to go back and watch their performances in their own time. Hope this video has been helpful. If it has, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again here very shortly on Passionate About Music Education.